From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Gulf Coast studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun. This is each and every podcast. It's Andre Johnson
Jr.
Do not forget the Jr. Very important. Remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Get the bell notification. But when we drop that, fire content. Also, once again, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. Please stay here. Please tell your friends about us here. We understand the two professional teams on this channel struggle a little bit, but bigger and better days are ahead. I can promise you. So that's that. Speaking of that, it is not a Victory Monday. The Saints had a little momentum going into the Saints-Falcons game Sunday. I was there. You were not there. You did some producing back here.
I was back here.
You were back here.
I didn't miss much.
Disappointing effort. Really, yeah, I left that game not for the first time, but just I was disappointed. I was expecting more. I expect them to be a little sharper. It just was not the case. So we're going to obviously get into all of that today on this Monday, Thanksgiving week, so that's always fun. But first things first, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Not as good as I was on, 2 weeks ago when we had Victory Monday.
Yeah.
Or even the moral Victory Mondays that we used to have.
Right.
This is just pain, suffering, and disappointing Monday because taking a loss is one thing. The Saints have taken plenty of losses this year, but taking a loss to that darn team in Atlanta, it just hurts a little more on a Monday.
It does. And look, they outplayed the Saints, despite the Saints having several opportunities to take control of that game, maybe even win that game or keep it a competitive game towards the end. They weren't able to do so, and it followed yet again a familiar script. Early deficit, never led the entire point in the game again, and they lose their biggest nemesis. Their biggest nemesis coming that were banged up. They lost 5 straight games. Saints were coming off of a bye. They were healthier. Got a little momentum with a win to really kind of play. The way that game played out was certainly frustrating to watch. And obviously, it was start number 3 for Tyler Shough. And that's where we're going to go with part 1 of the big picture today, the rookie's third start.
Yeah, Tyler Shough, he played the best game of his young career, the best game that any quarterback has in black and gold in at least a year or two, a couple weeks ago against Carolina. But he followed it up with the Falcons game where he went 30 for 43 passing, 243 passing yards, 22 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception on the final play of the game. So looking at the Tyler Shough that we saw beat Carolina, comparing that to the Tyler Shough we saw yesterday in the Dome, did Tyler Shough take a step back on Sunday against the Falcons?
Well, you hope not, but let's just be real and be fair. My biggest concern with Tyler Shough showed up. That concern being the bye week. That concerned me more than anything else. I said it multiple times last week that the team may have needed a break after 10 weeks of action, but Tyler Shough did not after just 2 weeks of action. And perhaps that break would disrupt the rhythm, the flow that he was in at that game where he was feeling it. And maybe it would disrupt that. And I thought that showed up on Sunday. I really did, especially early on. He did not look completely comfortable in this game, Andre, until the 2-minute mark of the first half where he went on that 2-minute drive, got him in scoring position, and we know Blake Grupe ended up missing the field goal. I think he had 5 straight passes. But before that, it took him a while to get settled in. There was the fumble on the second play of the game. I don't know who you blame that on. It was a play action. You see him kind of stick the ball in. He's looking up. Alvin's going like this, and his elbow kind of pops the ball out. I don't know who you put that on. He put it on himself. I don't know. We didn't get a chance to talk to Alvin, but I do know second play of the game, after you get a 3 and out, crowd is into it. It was as loud as it's been all season inside the Superdome. And fumble the ball in the second play of the game. It's tough. If you go back to the next drive of the game, they get the big kickoff return. He got sacked 5 times. There was 2 sacks that were on him. One of them was the first sack of the game where he ran into a sack on that second drive after the big kickoff return. Now, once he got into the flow, Final drive of the second quarter, I thought he played pretty well. I thought he looked really in control in those 2 15-play drives to start the third quarter. He made some nice throws in particular, worked the second level, middle of the field in the underneath area. The Falcons did a pretty good job of taking the top off in this game. Got them deep in position to make plays and to take points and to perhaps take over the game, but you have to finish. Think about what the Saints did to the Rams, to the Falcons. The Saints did to the Falcons what the Rams did to them a couple of weeks ago in the third quarter. The Rams only allowed the Saints 3 plays in the third quarter. The Saints only allowed the Falcons 3 plays in the third quarter. And yet look at the difference in the result. The Saints were dominated when that happened to them, and yet they lost by 2 touchdowns when the Falcons did it. When they did it to the Falcons. The Saints held a 23-play edge in total plays run. They won the time possession battle, and look at the different outcomes. So offense, so if you look at Tyler Shough's performance, if you actually break down the film, break down what he actually did, break down the decisions, the throwing, he was not as good as he was against Carolina. He was probably similar to what he was against the Rams. But in the Rams game, they were able to score a touchdown and a field goal, I believe. Was the final score of that game? I don't know, but it was more than 3 points. I know that.
It was a lot
So
more than 3 points.
I will end with this about Tyler Shough. He was okay. But I kind of feel like we've said that a lot about whoever's at quarterback right now, so I'm certainly not going to make an excuse for him. When the offense scores 3 points in a game, somewhere in the line of people to pin it on, the quarterback must come up. I've said it multiple times. He did have some nice throws against Atlanta. Like I said, they did a good job of taking the deep ball away. He did, for the most part, avoid the big mistake outside of the fumble in the second play of the game, depending on who you put that on. Interception last play of the game, I don't really care about. But I thought he was a little cold to start the game. And I thought that was the same way he started against the Rams. And I think the bye week played a little bit into that. Unless we see that happening from here on out, then maybe it was the Carolina game that was the outlier, and this is what he does week in and week out. I thought he kind of resembled the Rams start. Bottom line, the offense had their lowest scoring output of the season. So I'm not here to praise Tyler Shough. I'm not here to say he was awful. He was the main reason why they lost. But I'm not here to give him a glowing review. So final grade, given the fact that he was pretty similar to what he played against the Rams, but they scored less points, I gave him a C. I gave the rookie a C in that performance. What say you?
You know, I haven't addressed this fan base in a while, but the Rat Pack might be watching this with bated breath.
They probably are.
They've been waiting to see. If Tyler Shough had a bad game, will you hold him to the same standard that you held Spencer Rattler to? I'm holding him to the same standard. I gave him a D+ for the game on Sunday because at the end of the day, Tyler Shough was not good enough. That's what it comes down to. Tyler Shough was not good enough. And this is the guy who gave him an A against Carolina. I was very impressed against Carolina. But that guy didn't show up in the Dome on Sunday because when you look at the fact that, I mean, they were 0 for 3 in the red zone. Now, we're going to get to the coaching in a few minutes because that had something to do with this as well. But they were 0 for 3 in the red zone. Tyler Shough had plenty of opportunities. I think they ran 9 plays within the 8-yard line. Tyler Shough had plenty of opportunities in the red zone to score 0-3 in the red zone. 2 turnovers, you know. You could argue, you know, the fumble was on Shough or Kamara. Maybe it's a lack of chemistry between 2 guys that probably haven't worked out that, you know, with each other for very long. You can look at the interception on the last play of the game. I think he's just throwing one up. But at the end of the day, 0 for 3 in the red zone. 2 turnovers. Yes, Blake Grupe missed 2 kicks, but you were in a position where your offense failed 2 times for Blake Grupe to have to kick 2 kicks that he missed, plus the one at the goal line, essentially, that he finally made. So when I look at the team, it was the question I had on Friday's podcast. And it was a very important question, and it showed itself on Sunday. I said, can Tyler Shough overcome? Because the game that they played against Carolina, perfect on every front. The defense was great. They ran for 122 yards. Receivers were catching. Grupe wasn't missing. Everything went as planned. But I asked on Friday, when the running game isn't going, when Alvin Kamara gets hurt in the first quarter, when you go 28 carries for 79 yards, less than 3 yards per carry, and Tyler Shough was your leading rusher at 22 yards, can you still get the job done? The defense actually played well, but when the other team scores 24 points instead of 7 points, can you outscore them? When Blake Grupe is out there missing kicks, even though you got him in field goal range, can you overcome? And the answer was no. I mean, Tyler Shough couldn't seem to get anything going consistently enough. He couldn't build up a rhythm. He couldn't connect on that patented deep ball that we always say. Tyler Shough's always going to throw it. He couldn't connect on one. You know, we saw a lot of escapability in the pocket against Carolina. We didn't necessarily see that against Atlanta. A lot of times he was sacked, you know. So when I look at the offense, who the Saints lost 24-10, 7 of those 10 actually came from Justin Reed, the defense.
Yeah.
So the offense gave you 3 points, 0 touchdowns scored. I cannot look at the quarterback in a game where the offense scored 3 points and said the quarterback had a good game. I'm rooting for Tyler Shough. I like Tyler Shough, but I got to call it how I see it. And you also have to take into account, this wasn't the Buffalo Bills. This wasn't the Seattle Seahawks. This wasn't an elite team. This wasn't even the San Francisco 49ers. This was the Atlanta Falcons, a team on a 5-game losing streak, a team coming off getting smacked by Bryce Young, a team with a backup quarterback, a team that the Saints were actually the favorites against. Both you and I looked at this game several times over several weeks and said, that's one I think the Saints can win. Yes, it's an intense rivalry, and you can throw the records out the window because teams are going to play harder. The Falcons are going to play harder than the Saints or against the Saints. The Saints are going to play harder against the Falcons too. That's a game you should have won. That is a game Tyler Shough should have played better in. This isn't a game where, oh, you know what, the Saints are the scrappy underdogs and they did their best. No. That's a game where you were better than that team. You had less injuries than that team. You had a quarterback that was playing better than Kirk Cousins has played so far this season. A quarterback coming off his best game of the season. A defense coming off one of their best game of the season. You're rested coming out of a bye. There were so many reasons that the Saints should have won that game. They did not. A lot of reasons. But quarterback play has to be at the forefront of those reasons.
Yeah, it's up there. I mean, it's up there. I didn't think he looked quite as confident post-snap. He wasn't able to climb and navigate as well as he did against Carolina. Deuce said after the game that basically the game of film, they know he wants to step up and climb through. Those D tackles were kind of waiting there for him, not kind of getting up the field. They were just kind of hanging in into their lanes. When he stepped up, he was having a much more difficult time breaking away. He broke away a couple times, but when he did it, he wasn't able to make the same plays post-snap that he did against Carolina. Look, that's the NFL, and that's the rookie. That's a rookie working his way through. I will say, for me, you look at the key plays throughout the game. For me, it's the zone read run on first down. He's about the 5 or 6 yard line. He gets it, he keeps it, and he's right there. He gets in right there. I think the whole dynamic of the game changes at that point. Instead, he said at the game he didn't want to stick the ball out because it was only, was it first or second down? Yeah, it was first down. That they knew we were going to have another chance at it. But as they kept getting closer and closer to the goal line and they weren't able to punch it in, they were just kind of ramming against a brick wall. That play right there was, to me, the closest it felt like they were going to get in the end zone, and it wasn't able to happen. They got stuffed on the quarterback sneak on the next play. There was a wall. I don't know why he didn't go over the top, but it felt like had he done that, maybe they get a score. And then obviously you know what happens when the Taysom play. The drive before that, they called the Taysom play. He ran another play. Got near the goal line, got really close, wasn't able to get in, and then they ran the Taysom Hill play on fourth down. It didn't work. So yeah, man, it just didn't feel like it flowed quite as well. It didn't feel like he had quite the same connection with his offensive line. It didn't feel like he had quite the same trust in his ability to move and navigate like he did against Carolina. And we've said this multiple times. Just because there are imperfections on a play does not mean the result of the play is not the quarterback's fault because the circumstances weren't perfect. I mean, we did that with Spencer Rattler seemingly every week. It felt like if there was any slight imperfection in a game, then thus it could not be his fault. We're not going to do that with Shough either. So you got to be able to offset some of those imperfections if you want to be franchise material. If you want to be middle of the pack, backup, spot starter, maybe be a starter, a low-end starter one day, then fine. But if you want to elevate, you have to elevate in those imperfect situations. And I thought he did against Carolina. He didn't do it as well against Atlanta. And, go back to the film room. You have to learn what you did wrong. Understand what other teams are doing, because now they're all studying you. So now they're going to try to take away which they feel like you do best, and you got to counter. That's the NFL. And if you can't do it, you're not going to be a great one. So, we were talking last Monday about, you needed to see a few more, but if we do, he could be franchise material. Did he take a step back? I thought, yeah, he probably did. He wasn't quite as sharp. This was. You gave him a D+, I gave him a C, C-, whatever the case may be. This was a below average to average performance, and I think they needed more from him this week.
That is true. And now that I've been critical of Tyler Shough, I will give him a little grace here. And we know this. He's still a rookie.
Yeah, of course.
We didn't declare Spencer Rattler. We both said we didn't think Spencer Rattler was that guy. We didn't say it after his third start.
Yeah.
We gave him, 14, 15 starts before we said they got to move on?
Yeah.
This is Tyler Shough's third start. He has to take his bumps. He has to take his lumps. He has to make mistakes. He has to have his bad games to know the things he can do, the things he can't do, the things he can get away with when dodging the defensive line, the things he can't do. So he's a rookie. We're going to take this with a grain of salt. We're going to see if he can build on this because now they go to Miami, a team that's also coming off a bye, and they had a little momentum going into that bye. If you get to Miami and we can see you building off of this Falcons game, I couldn't care less what happened on Sunday. It's just a part of the journey. So it's about building on performances, the good ones, like Carolina, and the bad ones, like we saw against the Falcons. But once again, you touched on it. It ain't all Tyler Shough.
Nah,
I told you, 28 carries on 79 yards. Your quarterback was your leading rusher with 22 yards. You couldn't get the ball going on the ground. The offensive line, the Falcons blitzed 15% of the time yesterday. Lowest of the season for the Falcons. Despite blitzing 15% of the time, they had 19 pressures and 5 sacks
they were winning
when they rushed 4 or fewer rushers, which is a season high for them. So without blitzing, they got consistent pressure on Tyler Shough because you've got, 2 backup offensive linemen and whatever's left of Cesar Ruiz. That's not going to work. You got Luke Fortner snapping it high over Taysom Hill on a pivotal third down play. That's going to work. And on top of that, you've got certain coaching decisions that we've touched on throughout the season, but now as you look at the way this offense looks in the second half of the season, you really got to start asking, Sean, does it feel like Kellen Moore is over his head?
That's an interesting question because this was really the first Monday where I woke up and I was like, man, that was not a good job by Kellen Moore. It just was not a good job by Kellen Moore. And sometimes I have to remind myself, like you said, with Tyler Shough being a rookie. By the way, at least you're not seeing the chaotic, oh, wow, deer in the headlights look with Shough. I'll give him that. At least he's established that floor. But that's obviously not good. No, it's a different topic for a different day. But in Kellen Moore's case, I do have to remind myself this is a rookie head coach. Because Sunday was one of those games where I left as much as I've ever been as frustrated with Kellen Moore as I was. That was it on Sunday. I was more frustrated that Sunday than I was any other time. And I didn't like the tone they set offensively. First time, first chance to get some real momentum in the season. Real momentum. I mean, a great performance, young rookie quarterback, well-rested, banged-up team, back at home, biggest rival. And his side of the ball once again came out sluggish, and they were sluggish when it came to these details. It was interesting. You look at the third down numbers. They actually had better third down percentage. They had a 23 play edge in total plays run. Deuce said they ran 51 plays in the second half, and yet could not get over the top. They won time of possession, but they still could not run the football. They still could not establish the line of scrimmage, and you can feel that anxiety. I don't know about you, Andre, but with every inch in those 2 15-play drives, which is really where the game was lost, let's be honest, those 2 15-play drives, once they got deep into the red zone, from the 9 to the 8 to the 7, you could just feel the anxiety building. And I just think he got a little too addicted to Taysom down there. Way too much Taysom. And frankly, we need to have a real discussion about where Taysom is right now, what he is capable of doing right now, what he is not able to do right now, because it's not an automatic anymore. The throw they tried on the 4th down play did not work. I know they hadn't really tried that yet this year, so it was a new wrinkle to what they were doing, but it didn't fool the Falcons. And the way that drive had been going, to call a Taysom pass right there was certainly an interesting play call. The first play after the kickoff return I was talking about with Mason Tipton, they called for a Taysom run and went for no gain. That's early in the game. That's a young quarterback. Let's get him in the flow of the game, who had just had a big mistake, obviously, with the fumble. Above all else, it just felt like it didn't flow with Kellen Moore's usage of Taysom Hill. It felt like, more importantly, it almost felt like it interfered a little bit with Tyler's progress, especially on those longer drives where he was starting to get in a little bit of rhythm to have to come all. It wasn't like it was a big play to get downfield, quick strike, use Taysom real quick, change of pace. No, it was very methodical. But they were getting down there. They were converting first downs. They were using a lot of those first level, second level throws. So it felt like Sunday, constantly taking him in and out, down in the red zone. I felt like that stunted him a little bit in terms of his progress. And if I were Kellen Moore, I'd probably have to rethink that, both for Tyler, but also for Taysom, because as I said, I just don't think it's automatic anymore. And then look, this is probably a topic for a sole podcast, but Kellen Moore could have ended this Blake Grupe situation weeks ago, okay? Months. Weeks ago. And Grupe is still here at the timing of the taping of this podcast. It could change by the time we tape our next one. And Andre, it's costing games, or it's coming very close to costing games. Just think of yesterday, okay? Yep. If he makes just that first field goal, I think that was the 38-yarder or whatever it was, then it's 3-3. Okay, so if Atlanta comes down and scores, it's 10-3. Then when Justin Reed picks it off and returns it, it's now 10-10. Then it's 13-10, and you get the drive right before halftime. Okay, let's just say even if you miss that field goal, but if you make it, it's 13-13 right there. But if you miss it, give them one miss. Then they get the field goal at the end. It's 16-10, and you're going back-to-back drives, those long drives, with a one-score game. I just think the math is totally different. I think the approach is totally different. I think you're probably approaching it much differently with those type of situations. And so it's not just the misses with Blake Grupe, who is obviously battling confidence issues this year. It's the cumulative effect that those misses have in a game. And when your offense is trying to find its footing, they haven't found an identity yet. You're still figuring out the quarterback situation. You've had a lot of coming and going when it came to personnel, when it comes to trading and whatnot. And releasing certain receivers. You need those points. Yep. They are precious this year, and they're just not getting them, despite I counted 4 scoring opportunities yesterday, 2 red zones and the 2 missed field goals, so call it 5, and they got one score, and that was a field goal out of it. That's just unacceptable. So to me, you give out the way they came out against Atlanta, they just look sluggish. The decision to overuse Taysom, and I know Alvin got hurt, so it may have changed their plans a little bit based on who they had available. And then obviously, what is the need to hold on to Blake Grupe at this point? There's just no need. He had no loyalty. I know Phil Galliano's a special teams coordinator, but I mean this story should have been ended a long time ago. And I just think right now, Kellen Moore is learning on the job, and I think it's showing right now because I thought he struggled Sunday against Atlanta.
Yeah, like you. I was doing the math too. I said if Blake Grupe, after he missed the second kick, I said if Blake Grupe makes both of his kicks, you're going into the half tied 13-13. But with Blake Grupe missing, I believe it was a 47-yarder, you give the Falcons incredible field position. They drive down, get an easy field goal. Now it's 16-7. That's a lot harder to overcome than, like 13-13 or like you said, 16-13. But, when it comes to Tyler Shough, I give him a little grace. I say he's a rookie quarterback, yada, yada, yada. I give Kellen Moore a little less grace because he is a rookie head coach. He's not a rookie play caller.
No, he's not.
He's not a rookie offensive mind. He's not a rookie offensive coordinator. He did that for several years in several locations. The reason that you brought him here is because he had a successful stint as offensive coordinator with the Super Bowl champions. We haven't necessarily seen that. I mean, we're, 12 weeks in? And the Saints still have zero offensive identity. We still don't really understand what this offense is going for on a week-to-week, even a drive-to-drive basis. The offense has zero creativity. I mean, and I would like to see him stop taking Tyler Shough out in critical situations, 3rd and 4th downs, because at one point, that Taysom Hill QB power, you were probably converting 80 to 90% of the time with that. At this time, I think the league knows it's coming, and Taysom Hill's not the superior athlete to where he can still make it work, So at that point, I'm like, do I trust Taysom Hill to even be a better option to get a 3rd and 1 than I do Tyler Shough? I think Tyler Shough on a QB sneak,
me too,
or
man.
someone who's good at design QB runs, can probably get that.
Yeah.
On a zone read, is Taysom Hill at this point of his career
Shough is
really
good
more
at that,
reliable than Tyler Shough on a zone read? We know he's not as good when it comes to throwing the ball. I mentioned the Eagles. They had a signature play for the 2 situations that the Saints failed in. On the goal line, what do you do in Philly? Line up in that big formation and get to pushing. The good old brotherly shove, the tush push. Saints have tried to run it this season, and it's been flagged twice this season. Kellen Moore hasn't even been able to get his signature play off the line. So when I look at the lack of continuity in the offense, when I look at the fact that Taysom Hill his usage is up, but his production's down, when I look at the fact that Tyler Shough is coming out in critical 3rd and 4th downs, and we're judging Tyler Shough based off of the drives that he's not finishing, when he's not even having an opportunity to finish those drives. And like you said, the choice to keep sending Blake Grupe out there.
Yeah.
You the head coach. You have a large say in who your kicker is, and we keep sending Blake Grupe out there when everybody watching this podcast, look, we all don't agree on everything. We have certain opinions here, certain opinions there, but I think we all on the same page in saying it's time to move on from Blake Grupe.
Of course, absolutely. And even if you didn't want to cut him, you just wanted to hey, we're gonna pull you back a little bit. We're gonna give you a couple games to just relax and think about it for a second, because it's in your head right now. I wouldn't be okay with that. But to me, this can't go on. That's why you saw the Justin Tucker kicker workout, the K. York kicker workout coming on Tuesday. Look, if this is the first time they brought kickers in this year, it should have been happened. He's having a hard time finding the true pulse of the team, and I think he's just a little off in reading the room right now and reading the situation, and I think that has got to get better when it comes to that, because instincts are instincts, and I think right now he's struggling a little bit with that. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but we got to go, thank God, because that was tough to watch. But anyway, we got to get out of there. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.